So this is the Godox AD600 Pro. It's the V1, not the V2, to just further clarify. The reason I went with the V1 was because from a performance perspective, and from what I can tell with some research, they're basically identical with the exception of the V2 obviously being newer, having an updated UI, touchscreen features, and a few little things that I didn't find the need to spend a couple hundred extra bucks on. I bought this AD600 Pro a couple months ago because I needed a strobe that was a little bit more powerful than what I currently have. To give you guys a full outline, I currently have two AD400s. I have an AD200 Pro, which I made a video on showing how you guys can use that outside to get some really nice portraits and potentially even use it as a fill light against the harsh sun. And I have a Godox V1 and I have a couple Godox receivers. Basically, my entire photography setup is based around Godox products. Now, I know a lot of professionals out there are like, yo, if you ain't shooting with Pro Photo or whatever one of these brands are, it ain't right. But honestly, 99% of my clients do not care. The minute you put a nice strobe in front of them and you take some really good pictures and the quality comes out pretty dope, nobody's really asking. The only people who care are literally photographers. The way I look at it is gear is meant to be used. And if you could produce cool stuff out of it, the brand doesn't matter. That's just my philosophy. Take it as you will. And I know a lot of people are going to also say, oh, well, the other brands are more reliable. Look, take it for someone who's had Godox and even Flashpoint, which is their other brand for Adorama. I basically have had these strobes for almost 10 years now. I'm still using them. I now have a studio that I continuously use them for professional and personal and spec work. None of them have failed me. I only had to change out the bulbs maybe once or twice. That was about it. Take with it what you will. With that being said, let's go back and talk about this Godox AD600 Pro. Most of you might be asking, who the heck needs a strobe this powerful that puts out almost 600 watts of light? You see, there's this philosophy of beating the sun when you are taking photos outside. A light like this makes that very possible. And if you're not going outside, a light like this gives you a lot of light output. It puts out so much power basically that you just need this one single light to do all the work. That's if you don't want to get fancy with your 3-point light setup, 4.5 light setup, whatever the case is. There's a million ways to light a subject, but in this scenario, I'm just going to talk about how this single light has been it for me. Let's talk about the biggest reason why I bought this light, which was what I mentioned before. I was trying to beat the sun. I thought that by buying this light, I can take it outside with me as my single light source, and I would not need to lug around an 8200 or a 8400, and this would basically give me a little bit more light output. It certainly does, but with a massive trade-off. Though you can't feel the weight by watching this video, this strobe is pretty heavy, which means you have to get a heavy duty C-stand and a couple of sandbags to support the weight of this, especially after you put some type of diffuser on it, whether it's an umbrella or a softbox, whatever the case. When you pair this up with any type of diffuser and put it on a C-stand, it gets heavy, and if it's a windy day, it becomes unreliable. I know this firsthand because I took this out to a windy day shoot and it almost fell over. So a word of caution, put some weight on the strobe if you don't want to get anybody hurt. Did it actually beat the sun? Yeah. It performed very, very well. This strobe puts out enough power for me to light up a subject regardless of how bright it is or how dark it is when I shoot outside. That was the first reason I bought this. The second reason I bought this was because it's battery powered. I have a couple old strobes, like I said. The biggest hurdle with these older strobes was everything was wired. I wanted something that I can carry with me portably when I go and do events and when I do portraits outdoors. I have been able to get about 6 to 7 hours on a single charge with this strobe. I'm surprised as well that I was able to get that much out. It left me very impressed and very happy with the performance on it. In terms of ease of use, it's pretty easy to navigate. It has all the buttons built into here that you would basically ever need to pair it up with a receiver, pair it up as one of the many lights if you want to do a multiple light setup, if you want to turn on a mounting light, turn on high-speed sync. All of it is built into these side menus here. I'm not really going to dig into all those menu details because honestly, it's all preferential. When it comes to lighting, though there's a template, there's a million ways for you to light a subject depending on the look and feel that you're trying to go for. So all these menus do is just get you one step closer to there. So if you're looking for fine details on technical specs and going in depth into the menu, this ain't the video for that, but there's a million videos out there on YouTube going in depth on these menus that would do a better job than I am. But from a practical use case perspective, navigation is pretty easy. I have zero complaints. It's been pretty good so far. Now, when it comes to indoor lighting, this light is really great. Again, because it's portable and it's battery powered, you can take it basically anywhere for an indoor shoot and it's gonna give you a lot of power, especially because when you're indoor, it's more controlled. So any kind of diffuser paired with this light, it's just gonna be great. Now, I know talking about strobes can be a bit boring because the purpose of it is just to output a crazy blast of light to evenly light your subject or light the subject the way you wanted it to be lit. What I will talk about is some of the practical features that I ran into while using the strobe light and kind of talking to some of the issues that I ran into. So when I was using the strobe outdoors, like I mentioned before, it's pretty heavy. Once you put a diffuser, whether it's an umbrella, softbox, whatever it is, you add a lot more weight to this. It's already pretty heavy. The bulb here is already pretty big. I would recommend bringing a C-stand with a lot of sandbags and then being patient and then figuring out your lighting setup, because unloading and offloading and reloading and repositioning this thing with a C-stand and sandbags becomes very tedious. You're gonna get tired real quick. This thing requires a little bit of lifting and a little bit of cardio depending on how you're working with it. My suggestion is if you could bring a second person to just help you hold this light and position it, that would be ideal. But if that's not an ideal situation for you, or that's something you can't do, just be ready to, again, to lug some C-stands around and some sandbags the way I did, because, you know, none of my friends are available or ever available. Now, another con to this is that from what I understand, it only runs on battery. There is no AC adapter. It's only battery powered. So basically, once you run out of juice, you're out of juice. I would recommend really charging this to its full potential, planning out your shoots, and buying extra batteries if you're planning for a long day of shoot. The other con I would say with this is, compared to like something smaller like an AD600 Pro, this thing is a little bit bigger, so you might not be able to fit it through tight spaces, especially when shooting outdoors. This light paired with the light stand or a C-stand eats up a lot of space, so it's not ideal for a minimalist setup. Now, when it comes to indoors, I don't really have any problems with it. To be honest, it's been a great strobe. When I'm using indoors, sometimes all I need is this single light. I'm someone who likes to overlight. I tend to do like 3 light setups, but with this one, sometimes I just want to shoot with this one and try different diffusers on it. For indoor shooting, this is the one and only strobe you actually need. It puts out a lot of power, and all you have to do is figure out how to properly light, how you want to use it, and I think this is the only single source of light you need. I know this video might seem kind of short because I'm not really going into the technical details. Like I mentioned before, there's already a trillion videos out there that go through all of the specs, all of the features, and go diving into the technical stuff and all the lighting and all that stuff. There's a time and space for that. But for a practical user who just wants to fire up a great strobe and get a lot of light indoors and outdoors, I think this is the only strobe you'll probably ever need. I've had friends who've been recommending this strobe to me for a couple years now, and I never bit the bullet because I was just like, look, I already got some 400s laying around. I already got a 200 laying around. Why would I possibly need this? If you're looking for something portable, practical, and wireless, and puts out a lot of power, this is it. If you're trying to fit into tight spaces, this might not be it. If you have 0 friends who are willing to hold this strobe for you to help you achieve that perfect shot, get used to carrying a C-stand and a couple sandbags around, or just deal with insurance claims. Again, I know, I'm sorry, I'm not super technical on it. Strobes are as is, right? Once you figure out how to use one strobe, you figure them all out. But what I do hope you took away from this is that this is great for beginners, this is great for intermediate people, and this is great for pros who use this on a daily basis. With that being said, I hope you guys found this helpful. If so, do subscribe, check out my other videos, and until next time, I'm out. Peace, yo.